We're now joined by Barr. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. Gene, thank you for being with me.
Phil, thanks for the invitation to come on.
Now, your organization has called for the implementation of temporary liability protection for some businesses. Talk a little bit about what you're intending.
Yeah, we have. Look, we're in extraordinary times. And in our view, we need some extraordinary measures to make sure that we can bring this economy back. These measures, in our view, are ones that are designed to protect businesses as well as healthcare professionals, as well as health facilities that have had to take, as I mentioned, these extraordinary measures during this time. From the business perspective, it includes businesses who've had to continue to operate, essential businesses such as supermarkets, pharmacies, et cetera. It also includes businesses who've turned their process around, who are maybe making clothing and apparel, who are now making personal protective equipment, gowns, masks, gloves, et cetera, to make sure that they have some protection and won't get sued in a year because a product that they made, somebody said, well, you don't usually make it, but it was defective. And we also need protection for those businesses as they start up, because there's a tremendous concern in our litigious climate here in this Commonwealth that as restaurants and small businesses and other businesses begin to start up, someone will say, I'm filing suit because I think I got COVID while I was on your property. We're already seeing some of that relative to essential businesses. A supermarket chain in Western PA has been sued for forcing people who said that they had health problems to wear a mask. And so the businesses are in a tough position of complying with the governor's order or adhering to these other requirements in terms of the mask wearing.
How will economic recovery be affected by having this type of exemption from liability?
Well, right now there's a number of concerns that businesses have. One of them obviously is protecting their employees and their customers. Getting their customers back is another big deal. But one of them is making sure, again, giving them this safe harbor, this targeted and, as you know, temporary protection that is not blanket immunity. They have to comply with guidelines. So if you're complying with federal and state guidelines for safe reopening, you should have a safe harbor. You should be able to bring your business back with the thought that you're not going to have unnecessary lawsuits that are going to plague you as you bring your business back and as we try and get this economy back up and rolling.
So would it only be for coronavirus related lawsuits?
Correct. And only during the time of the governor's executive order that has established this state of emergency. So it is, as I mentioned, targeted and temporary.
Now, the governor has already issued an executive order offering some liability protections. What did you think about that? Does that suit your purposes?
Well, I would say that it's a good start, and that's what both the doctors and the hospital community have said. Unfortunately, it only protects about 50% of the physicians that are out there, and only in certain cases. A physician might be protected in one setting, but not protected in another. We need to go significantly beyond this, and many states have exceeded what we've offered in terms of liability protection for facilities and healthcare practitioners, and also for the business side. So again, we need to make sure that we can stay competitive with what these other states have done.
Talk a little bit more about those other states. Or what are we seeing, say, in some of the states that are surrounding us?
Well, New York and New Jersey were some of the ones who first came out pretty quickly in terms of providing protection for health professionals. Other states such as Kentucky and I believe North Carolina has now implemented protections for businesses as well. So again, it's important that Pennsylvania does not fall behind, because we have got to continue to track investment to Pennsylvania. To the extent that we're seen as overly litigious, that's going to adversely impact our ability to bring the economy back.
What recourse would consumers who may have legitimate concerns have, who would normally pursue a lawsuit as a way to remedy those?
It's a great question. If the business isn't complying, and what we've heard from pushback from certain quarters has been, well, this lets the bad actors go. This is, as I said, this is not blanket immunity, and others have said this lets people continue to violate. It's not. If a business doesn't follow the guidelines from CDC or other applicable state guidelines, then that safe harbor, that protection from liability, does not attach to them.
What types of actions do you think that the legislature should take?
Well, we would certainly welcome legislative action on this that would and there's some legislation that's being prepared right now. And hopefully we'll see that move that would address exactly what I've talked about, those protections for health professionals, healthcare facilities, as well as businesses who have done and fall into the categories that we've discussed. And again, only on a temporary targeted basis.
Have you heard any response from the governor to your request?
We have not. I mean, other than his executive order that he issued, that again is a good start, but doesn't help business in terms of their ability to come back and to resolve what many believe to be an overly litigious climate that the businesses face.
Now, on Friday, Governor Wolf signed a temporary stopgap budget. What did you think of that?
Well, you know what? It's probably necessary to do. The problem is we don't know what tax revenues are going to be. Obviously, we've put off until July 15th the filing for personal income taxes, corporate income taxes, et cetera. It's probably a wise thing, we believe a wise thing to do a 5-month budget while we do an assessment and see what we have available. And that reassessment will be done over the next few months as we see these revenues come in, and then we can come back in the fall. The legislature can come back and complete that budget as we move into 2021. We think it's a wise move to do this.
Now, are there measures in the budget that help businesses?
Well, I think this is one that simply says, let's get the budget in, let's flat fund, let's make sure that our schools can open on time. And I think you bring up a great point. As we re-engage on this, we're going to have to find things that are going to help businesses from a legislative and a regulatory perspective. And we're going to have to engage with the administration as well as the legislature on items such as that.
Now, as the state is slowly starting to county by county open up from the shutdown, what are some of the main concerns that you're seeing from your members?
Well, as noted, it's getting their customers back. It's concerns on their part about making sure they can bring their employees back and keep their customers safe. The unemployment issue with the additional monies that are coming from the federal government are providing a hindrance because in many cases they're paying people much more than they were making as in terms of their salaries. This extra $600 a week that just can't go on. It's actually being a hindrance to us in terms of getting the economy up and running. And again, we talked about the liability issues. These are all concerns. So what we're doing at the chamber is we're providing businesses guidance and thoughts and procedures in terms of how to come back safely. We formed something called Bringing PA Back. We worked with our local chamber partners across Pennsylvania. We worked with statewide associations here in the Commonwealth, including the Hospital Association and the Pennsylvania Medical Society, to develop guidelines and procedures that would allow businesses to see what they need to do to come back safely. Just last week, we finished a 5-part webinar in terms of how you can bring your business back. From a labor perspective, from a legal perspective, from a business perspective, from a sanitation, all across the board. We had participation from the Secretary of DCED and his staff, which we greatly appreciated. All those have been recorded and are on our website.
Are there any specific policy measures that you think are necessary to help businesses recover?
Beyond the liability issue, we think it's also important as we proceed. Look, Pennsylvania has long labored with an issue, which is we have one of the highest corporate net income tax rates in the world. That continues to be an issue in terms of trying to attract investment to this Commonwealth. The other one that I think we have to be cautious about is let's make sure we don't put unnecessary hurdles and barriers in place of businesses looking to start up. Discussions about moving to a $15 an hour minimum wage when you're a small business that is literally trying to survive, trying to see those hurdles placed in front of you are not productive in terms of bringing these businesses back.
Well, Gene Barr, President and CEO of the PA Chamber of Business and Industry, thank you for speaking with me.
Bill, thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
During the uncertain times brought on by the coronavirus outbreak, PCN remains committed to the needs of Pennsylvania and its people. PCN provides free daily coronavirus updates from Governor Wolf and the Department of Health Secretary Dr. Levine, live, on air, and streaming on the app and online. These updates will be available to watch in their entirety on demand for free by downloading the PCN app or at pcntv.com. PCN, committed to keeping Pennsylvania informed.
We're now joined by Nathan Main, CEO of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. Thank you for being with me.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, last Friday, Governor Tom Wolf signed a stopgap budget. What's in there that's related to schools?
Well, he did sign the stopgap budget, and I guess it's a little different for education. The main budget, I'm sure, as many of your viewers have heard, covers several months, but not a full year of state operation. But they did put in a full year of education funding. Really, if I was to bring it into one kind of summary, it is level funding. It is dollar for dollar what school districts received the previous year. That is. I think that's a great step in terms of where we are right now in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of talk about a $5 billion deficit plus, depending on the day you talk to folks in Harrisburg. So while certainly we believe education needs more funding, there are some specific areas that certainly need more funding. In light of the challenges brought on by COVID-19, districts are at least going to be able to count on, as they finish their budgets, receiving dollar for dollar what they had last year.
Now, this budget came in earlier than we usually expect. How does that help school boards for their planning?
Well, boards were already, and superintendents and business managers, in the throes of budgeting back in March when the world was turned upside down. And this was a huge challenge. There were a lot of question marks as we moved kind of March, April, May. The longer that the budget process went on, obviously the greater challenge for school boards to be able to put together a solid budget with some reliable estimates. The state coming out very early with the budget, the governor signing it in much earlier than in most years, simply helps districts do a little bit better in their budget estimates as they get ready to head into July 1. So it's, I think, incredibly helpful that there's some predictability now.
Now, school boards also generate revenue through property taxes. That provides a little bit more stability than the income tax sources from the general fund?
We have a system, obviously, as you point out, Phil, that relies on property taxes. I think great challenges in the year ahead. There's a lot of talk about what tax revenues will look like in terms of any tax. But districts are going to do their best, as I think everybody's going to control their costs. They're going to do their best not to increase budgets any more than absolutely necessary. But we need to recognize also that there are always increasing costs across the board, and education is no exception, and some new challenges brought on by COVID that are certainly going to impact district budgets negatively this year.
Now, a big part of this budget is that while the school funding is a full year, the legislature and the governor will be revisiting as we get closer to the end of November the rest of the budget. Do you think the school boards will be looking for more money at that point?
I think it's far too early to determine what anybody might be looking for come November, right? Things are happening so quickly these days, it's hard to predict what next week's going to look like, let alone November. I can tell you that I think there's going to be a lot of discussions around education still, despite the budget being settled on that. Certainly the impact of some mandates and some other areas worth looking at. We'll certainly have, as school districts across the state, I think, more experience under our belts as districts bring students back, hopefully this fall. And if there's anything that needs to be dealt with legislatively to address some of what I'm sure will be some challenges that come up, that'll need to be dealt with when they're back in as well.
Now, the state is starting to open up county by county on a conditions-based situation. And that, of course, creates opportunities for school boards to start thinking about reopening. A task force was established to think about some of the steps that may need to be taken. Can you talk a little bit about that task force?
Well, PSBA is just one of multiple organizations involved. You've got PSEA, you've got the business managers, PASA, the Superintendents Association, principals, the IUs, PACTA, which is your career and tech centers, and a lot of other organizations jumping in. It's really been a tremendous compliment to the ability of all of these different groups to work together collaboratively, quickly, to work on a lot of different areas around challenges in reopening. So there are task forces looking at everything from curriculum to extracurriculars and what happens with sports teams and the marching band and that sort of thing, looking at health and safety issues, looking at facility issues. The groups really came together and said that we need to be able to provide a good collection of ideas, recommendations, and resources for districts, because there is no one-size-fits-all solution to districts reopening in the fall. We are a state of a lot of diversity. We're a state of local control, and every district, I think, is going to need to look at their unique set of circumstances, and address it with the best possible resources and ideas. So, clearly, you point out that we're reopening slowly with the governor's three-tiered approach. Districts that are currently in a green zone, I would venture to guess, are in a completely different space in terms of planning for reopening than those that are still in yellow. And as we move forward, they're all going to have to address challenges.
Now, will school boards have the authority to decide whether they will reopen, or will they need to get permission from the governor's office?
I don't know the answer to the question, Phil. We're a state, as I mentioned, of local control, and I think that districts have the ability to determine reopening, but obviously districts closed very quickly in March when the governor put everybody into a stay-at-home order. So I think it'll depend on the circumstances. I think that if districts aren't under any sort of statewide order to remain closed, then districts can decide to reopen. But of course, if some of the things that we've heard about with the second wave this fall, if that turns out to be true, if the governor would be in a position to need to put people back into red, I guess is the color, certainly that would impact districts, and I don't think districts would go against the governor's order to stay at home. Obviously, we want to work hard to protect the health and safety of teachers and administrators and most importantly, students.
Now, after the shutdown order came, it was very quick, and schools had to scramble to put together remote teaching capabilities. Are they looking to make those capabilities more robust and more permanent going forward?
I think they are. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but every district's going to be in a different place. But you're right, districts moved incredibly quickly. And I think it was amazing to see how quickly all 500 school districts really pivoted in light of the challenges. They've all ended up in a different place, again, looking to address student needs and student challenges in different ways. But they have really bolstered their ability to teach remotely. I don't see those resources going away. I see districts actually spending a lot more energy and time making sure that they always have that ability, that if it's technical, if it's connectivity issues, if it's curriculum resources, that sort of thing, so that they're prepared. Districts, I know some districts are talking about being able to be prepared this fall if there does need to be some sort of a hybrid approach. And nobody knows where we're going to be, but I think you're going to see districts well prepared for any eventuality.
Now, any reopening will involve efforts taken to deal with coronavirus, and that'll include things like personal protective equipment and social distancing and cleaning different types of facilities. With the level of funding of the school budget, is there enough funding in there to pay for these extra costs?
Well, the short answer is nobody knows what all those costs will be as we continue to explore what all the needs are going to be. And obviously the costs are going to vary greatly. Just one way of looking at it is based on the size of the student population. A high school that has 500 or 600 students is certainly going to have a different set of challenges and expenses than a district with 4,000 or 5,000 students in a high school building. But that applies across the board in terms of all the challenges for reopening. I think you're going to, again, see districts really work hard to keep costs controlled. I would point out that the General Assembly did pass some additional funds going into the safety dollars and expanded that for the coming year to include health and safety and the ability to buy PPE, among other things. So there is going to be a separate pool of dollars out there. Again, I can't say today if that's not enough, more than enough. Districts are still really exploring all the challenges required when they look at CDC guidelines and that sort of thing for cleaning, for protection of students, considering all the possibilities.
Now, other states are going through many of the same things that Pennsylvania is going through. Are you seeing things in these other states that you're able to learn from and adapt to Pennsylvania circumstances?
Absolutely. There's been multiple states, not every state, but multiple states were out pretty early with reopening plans. I think in many cases, they're going back and adding to and editing those plans because this is an evolving situation. I know some folks that I'm friends with over in Missouri working on these issues. They were out very early with a roadmap for reopening. I know that there's been a report issued in New Jersey around reopening. And you better believe, certainly when it comes to the School Boards Association, and I know with many of the groups on the task force, we're taking a long, hard look at those and stealing the best ideas we possibly can, and then adding in some of the challenges we know that Pennsylvania districts would be looking at. But there are some common threads across, I think, every school district in Pennsylvania and every school district around the country.
Well, Nathan Main, CEO of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, thank you for speaking with me.
Phil, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
The PCN family. Our roots run deep. What grew out of a plan to distribute educational programming has grown into the nation's leading statewide public affairs network. Since 1979, PCN has been supported by cable operators across the state. It is because of this generous support that PCN uses no state or federal tax dollars, reaching more than 10 million of our neighbors. Thank your cable operator. We do.
We're now joined by Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Secretary Cindy Adams Dunn. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, as the state is starting to open up, DCNR is working to open up its facilities as well. This weekend, some of the swimming facilities are expected to be opened up. What can Pennsylvanians expect?
Well, on this coming weekend, we're opening our beaches. This is summertime. People look forward to their state park visit with a beach. We have 58 beaches across the system. They will be open at 50% capacity. I don't think that'll be a problem, really. A lot of our beaches don't reach capacity, but they will reach capacity on holiday weekends and on gorgeous weather days like we had this past weekend. So think about that. I'd love people to come and have a great time. Bring a mask, wear it for periods of time you might be closer to other people, like using the restroom facilities, changing facilities, or in line at the concessionaire. Obviously, don't wear a mask in the water. I think that goes without saying. But we want people to be safe, enjoy the outdoors, and people have been enjoying the parks all along. The public lands have been open, but now we're happy to open this summer amenity that people look forward to.
So how will the different park staffs enforce the 50% capacity? Will they be counting people as they come in?
Well, okay, then I mentioned the beaches, but then the next Saturday, the swimming pool's open. The swimming pools are all gated, of course, so that will be really a predetermined number, and when it reaches that number, obviously people will wait at the gate, socially distanced for people to leave. The beach is a little more open space, so it'll be more managed parking. Again, at the pools, we have lifeguards, and we want the lifeguards laser focused on water safety. So we'll ask other personnel to move about and really try to encourage the social distancing. And also, like I said, at the pools, we've got a gate. So I'd like to encourage families to do. Obviously, in a hot summer day, nothing's better than coming for a swim. We don't want people to be disappointed. So what we really suggest is plan ahead, check on our webpage. We have a reopening webpage, by the way, on our website, and you can find it by going to DCNR reopening tab and see exactly the park you're planning to go to and make sure it's open, make sure everything's open. And secondly, get online, have a plan. Get your family around the mindset, or your friends around the mindset. Hey, we'll go to the beach, but maybe we'll take a hike and have a picnic. Have a couple alternatives in mind, so you don't have a bunch of disappointed folks. If you can't do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it. One thing we've noticed, we have had record-breaking visitation since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. People really connect with the outdoors, need the outdoors for physical and mental well-being during this stressful time. And people are flocking to the public lands, whether they be state parks, state forests, and our municipal partners of the 6,000 municipal parks in Pennsylvania are reporting the same thing. So have a plan, have a couple alternatives in mind. One thing to think about with the beaches and pools, something a little different in the pool areas. We had some furniture usually in there. There's some lounge chairs, some tables. We've taken that away to eliminate the touch issue. So bring your own chair. Everyone's got these folding chairs and bags. And what I suggest, that's a way of operating all summer. Dig your folding chairs out, clean them off, throw them in the car. You can use them at a park if you get to the park and it's a little crowded in the picnic area, but you still want to have a picnic, just set up in your own space. You'll need it at the pool. You'll want it at the beach. Even if you're visiting friends in their backyard and want to have a socially distanced visit with family or friends, it's not a bad idea to have those chairs. So I just suggest, I've got mine out, got them dusted off. They're ready for the season, but that's another change. Also recommend people bring hand sanitizer. Obviously, we have sanitizer stations. We have bathhouses with sinks, soap, but with a lot of visitors, you never know if you get to the, if we haven't been in there and you haven't refilled the soap, if the sanitizer station is empty or gone or something has happened to it. Always good to be equipped with that. And of course, you want to have the mask. The mask is necessary and needed for pool entrance. It's recommended that we have it at the beach. Again, for those times when you can't be, you can't have the proper distance.
What other types of facilities will be open? Will campsites be available?
Yeah, we open the campsites as the counties have moved into yellow. We've been opening the campgrounds. We're seeing record participation in camping for early summer. It'll be interesting to see if that carries on all summer. And again, thinking about the disappointment factor, if you know you're going to want to be camping, go ahead and get on and and reserve your spot through our online reservation system. It's really easy to use. That other thing people don't seem to know too much about. We have camping in state forests, and it's actually free, but you do have to register. We need to know you're there for safety reasons and such. And so again, in that case, call the Forest District office, get a recommendation of a good spot, and you can camp in the state forest, which is a really neat opportunity because you really are socially distanced. It'll just be you in the area you choose. So again, and we suggest people in thinking about your recreational fun this summer, the people you share a house or roof with now are going to be your safest partners out there in the outdoors. You sit across a dinner table with them now. When you expand beyond that group, just be very careful and think about ride sharing, distancing, etc. In the outdoors and also getting to the outdoors. But there's a lot of ways to do it safely, and I really hope people make the outdoors part of their summer like it usually is. We have an amazing number of resources here in Pennsylvania.
Now, DCNR also operates cabins and lodges. Will those be available to the public?
Yeah, we're opening them starting on June 12th. In the counties as they go into yellow. We needed a little more time to get those ready. We're only doing weekly rentals on those. June 12th is when we start the weekly only season. We just weren't equipped for a daily cleaning of the level of cleaning we now need with COVID. So again, they're open and available for reservation as counties go yellow. Hard to find an open one sometimes. So again, if you could have a flexible mindset, maybe be prepared to go to a cabin in a park you haven't gone to before, which could be fun. So just think about that opportunity. And the neat thing is about cabins, we have a lot of private sector providers near the parks who provide cabin opportunities. And it's good to give that private sector a boost right now in these tough economic times. And so, looking around online and finding a cabin near a state park could be, what you fall back to if you can't get into the park.
Now, some parks have facilities like golf courses. Will those be available?
We opened the golf courses a couple of weeks ago, and they're open. We timed that along with the governor's opening of golf courses, commercial golf courses statewide. The golf courses are open. The marinas are all open. We have 9 marinas. And of course, we've had water-based sports like kayaking, canoeing, fishing have been open in the proper season as they came on board. Again, with the water, with water sports, I'll always add the safety elements of wearing your PFD. Again, in the water, including the pools and the beaches, please keep an eye on your family and friends. In pools, we have lifeguards. At beaches, we generally don't, with a few exceptions. It's super critical, whether there's a lifeguard or not, to keep your eye on your family and friends, the people you came with, because of water safety. And again, every year, tragically, across Pennsylvania, in the rivers and streams of Pennsylvania, there can be losses. And again, they can be prevented with some attention to safety.
Now, some facilities like pavilions and playgrounds and amphitheaters seem to be made for large groups of people to interact with each other. How will those facilities be handled?
We're using the governor's code for group size. In yellow, it's 25, and in green, it goes up to 150. So we're using that guideline. So like in a place right now that is under the 25 max group, we'll have probably moved extra picnic tables out of those pavilions to try to limit it to 25. We won't take reservations for more than 25 in the yellow, but when it goes to green, then it does jump up to 150. But I think people need to keep the mindset of, this COVID pandemic isn't over. It really pays to be cautious and aware of distance, hand washing, masks, all those things we've learned so well over the past couple months, and to keep those safe practices going. Because again, even though spread appears to be less outdoors, everything the CDC is saying indicates that, still close contact, extended contact, to a lesser extent, maybe touch surfaces, but you want your experience to be completely positive and not negative, and to be careful until the pandemic is passed through through vaccination and such.
Now, earlier you mentioned a website that people can go to get information. Is that the best source to find out what the requirements are for the safety requirements are for different sites?
Absolutely, yes. We have that all posted on our webpage. And also there's a reopening page that you can go to a county, click on a park, and see what exactly is open in that park. There's a few notable issues where something in the park's under construction. So where, like, say, the pool at Cadorus is a big example. It's a huge swimming pool, sees thousands of visitors every year, but it's closed for construction. That has nothing to do with COVID, but again, we like people to be happy in the state parks, not disappointed. So plan ahead, check out the web page, do a little planning. When you look at the maps we have on our web page of a state park, you might have a favorite area you usually go to, but maybe you'll spot a little different area, a slightly different picnic area you haven't used before. Maybe you'll explore a picnic area at the state forest. And again, we ask people to take your trash with you. We have bins, of course, in the big day use areas, but we want people to leave it the way they found it, and leave no trace principles, so the next visitor, who might just be coming in half an hour after you leave, has that same experience you had.
Well, Secretary Cindy Adams Dunn from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, thank you for speaking with me.
And thank you for your interest, and thank you for helping us get the word out to people as they plan their summer.